I'm Dr. Blair Masters with AcuSmart, and I wanted to talk about habit loops. These are loops that we get into on an emotional basis or just in a habit. And a good example of that, I think, is tying your shoes. You know, when you're 5 years old and you're learning to tie your shoes and your fingers won't do it, and you just, how do you do this? You don't yet have that habit formed. And it's not really your fingers that are doing it, it's more your neurology. Your nerves aren't used to getting your fingers in the right position. But then by the time you get to be 7 or 8 years old, you just can whip out a loop in your shoelaces without any problem whatsoever and not even think twice about it. Well, this is a good example of a habit loop. And these things can really serve us. They really can. If you had to relearn how to tie your shoes every time that you tied them, we wouldn't ever accomplish anything in our lives. You know, these things are stored away. They're like automatic loops that get put in the programming, and they can really help us get things done. You know, if you had to relearn how to type every time you sat down in front of a computer, you'd never get anything done. Same goes for like driving home. Have you ever driven home and you got in the car at work and you started the car, and before you knew it, you were home. You don't even remember any of it. You turn right when you're supposed to turn right, and you turn left when you're supposed to turn left, and you pull in your driveway, and man, that was just a habit that you've been in for a long time. And again, these things are good for us, but sometimes we store habits that are not good for us. And this is why I'm talking about it. You know, you've heard of people who, not so many people smoke anymore, but they lit up a cigarette and they have a cigarette in their mouth, and they happen to be under a lot of stress and they're not really thinking about it, and they light up another cigarette and they find, oh man, I already had one in my mouth. You know, it's this habit loop that they get into. And when they're in a situation like that, it can be a real problem. It can really affect your health and your life. Another one is kind of where we eat a lot of times. You know, we get in the habit of eating fast food because that's just easy and convenient, and you just always have done it. But eventually that kind of habit is going to catch up with you. Some of the more destructive habits are things that we don't even think about as habits sometimes, and that is how we interact with other people. You know, you learn when you're a kid, if I get angry, I'll get what I want more. And this is all learned subconsciously. A lot of times people don't know this consciously, but you get in a situation where you're afraid of something, so you lash out. Well, I'm afraid that I'm not going to be able to pay the bills this month, so I get mad at my kids, or I get mad at my spouse. And that's this habit loop that you get into, and you get the reputation of being someone who's kind of a jerk at that point. Well, you want to analyze those habit loops and break those habits. One of the best ways that you can break them is being aware of them. If you notice that you're always in a situation where you perform this particular activity when you have this happening in your life, then that's a habit loop that you should maybe consider trying to break. Emotional interactions with people a lot of times are habits. I'm in the habit of having anxiety when I get into a crowd, and I've used this example in the past. I'm in the habit of when I'm questioned at work, I become a workaholic and put in a lot of extra hours to prove that I'm worthy, and that may be a habit. And in some ways, in the past, at some point, you were in a situation where you felt like this was something that was going to serve you. So that's one of the reasons you form these habits. Or you notice, your subconscious notices to some degree, hey, this is working for me. So you form these habits. But as an adult, you can identify these and be in a situation where you make decisions whether or not that's a habit that you want to keep. And again, awareness is one of those things that can bring breaking that habit up easier. Another couple things you can do to break a habit that you don't like is to just completely do something that is out of character for you. You know, when I get scared I'm not going to be able to pay the bills, I tend to lash out and brood. Well, I'm going to go for a walk this time and ask my family along, you know, and really work on not being unhappy while I'm on that walk. You know, this is a complete pattern interruption, and that's a good way to break those. Or, you know, every time I get under a little bit of stress, I turn to my phone and I'm on my phone. Well, breaking that habit and interrupting that, and maybe, oh, I'm on my phone, but I'm listening to music instead of playing a video game. Or I'm doing something else productive, like observing, you know, observing the nature around you or whatever it is. Any kind of a pattern interrupt is going to make a big difference. But watch out for habit loops and break those habit loops as needed in your case. Make sure that they're habits that you want to keep as opposed to just, oh, I formed that 20 years ago and I just keep doing it. So make those decisions, and hopefully this is helpful.